Well, welcome to the table. This is a live stream where we have relevant conversations for women who are leading people, projects, and progress. Goodness, that's a mouthful. Hello, everyone. We're so glad that you've joined us. I have my friends and colleagues back with me, Maria Guy. Hey, Maria.
Hello.
I have Amy Norton. Hi, Amy.
Hello, hello. Glad to be here.
Yeah, and sadly, we're missing Dr. Jessica Rimmer. She ended up having a client meeting today that was, very necessary. That's what your jobs are, right? So when duty calls, you have to go, and so we'll miss her and her perspective. But we're glad that you two are with us today. And so those of you who are joining us on the Giant platform, thank you for coming, and also on social media. Thanks for being here. This live stream it's a 6-episode live stream. And so this actually is our last one. And so for those of you who maybe missed a few along the way, or maybe you're joining us for the first time and you haven't been able to see the other 5, we have now made this into a series that you can watch whenever you'd like on a free account through Giant. So if you just go to giant.tv, and put a slash there. And if you know Maria, put her name behind there, Maria Guy. If you know Amy, put the slash and then Amy Norton. Or if you know Jessica or myself, same. Just put our names behind there. And that connects you with us here on the platform. And that way, if you decide, hey, I'd like some coaching or some consulting through one of these ladies, or my team could really use this invincible product that you guys talk about, then that way your kind of connect person, your expert here at Giant will be the person that you put that slash in their name behind. So we encourage you to do that and then watch this live stream, the other 5 episodes there on that. You'll see it. It's just called Welcome to the Table, just like the live stream. So that was a lot. I'm just glad to be here with you all. I know that the holidays are coming up, and I'm curious from both of you, what's your favorite part of the holidays? Is it, oh, yay, I get to be off work and I don't have a big schedule like I normally do? Or is it the decorating the tree? Or is it just the fact that your family's around? I know it's hard to pick one, but what do you just really get giddy for? Amy, we'll start with you.
That's such a good question. I feel like I'm always in a rush all the way up to the 24th. And for several days, 24th, 25th, 26th, once we get to that holiday actually beginning, I feel like I get into just a great Zen place where I'm really present with my family, where sometimes at Thanksgiving, I'm not, if I'm being honest, because I still feel like the stress of work. But my favorite part is being able to completely disconnect from the external world and just focus on our friends and our family that we get to spend that time with. We have some special foods that we make every year that are sort of a tradition that we all look forward to on Christmas morning. And we go to Christmas Eve services the night before. There are just several things that when you think of the expression warm fuzzy, all that stuff is in my mind as I'm thinking about it around the 24th to the 26th, just very low key.
Yes.
Wow, love it. How about you, Maria?
I think it's similar, those traditions that we have, right? That we get together on Christmas Eve and go to church and then get together with the extended family and exchange gifts. And the food is amazing. I mean, just those things that you get to have once a year. And then Christmas morning is just our family. You know, it's us opening gifts amongst ourselves. And then, of course, Santa brings some stuff, and he's, awesome that way. Those stocking stuffers. And I think it's just that tradition of looking forward to all the things that are going to happen. I don't know how it's going to happen this year, how it's all going to play out. We're waiting. But yes, that is my favorite, is looking forward to all those traditions, that the music, the food, the gatherings. I love it. I love it.
And I'm realizing that the things that are the most important to me are the 2 things we're keeping, because we have a completely different Christmas this year. We're not going to be at home. Everything is upside down, but it's sausage balls and the stockings. I know.
Love it.
I love it. Well, I was going to say stockings are actually my favorite thing. I love to pick out little gifts for my kids and everyone, my mom and all that, and find little fun things that they love. And then I love opening my stocking of all the things, even if it's little things. There's something about the stocking. So
yeah, I agree.
It
Well,
is.
I hope you both have a wonderful holiday season and everyone watching you as well. I know maybe it's just a bow on the end of 2020 that we can say, okay, we're wrapping that one up and going on. So I did want to tell all of you who are watching that since we are ending our live stream, this one, 6 episodes, this is our last one, we would love for you during this half hour together, would you put in the chat just some suggestions of things you'd love for us to cover during our next live stream. We're going to take a bit of a break for the next several weeks during the season and then right at the beginning of January. And then hopefully we'll begin again on January 11th is a Monday, and we'll do this again. But we just want to hear from you. What are some topics that you'd like for us to discuss? For you that are women, we want to know what's on your heart. Maybe some things that you just think, man, why haven't they talked about this yet? We want to know those things. And if you're a guy and maybe you're confused with the women in your life, if there is something that you want to know, we will discuss that as well. So put that in the chat, if you will, for now, and we'll try and get to those. And we'll definitely make note of those and consider those when we're planning for 2021. So today we want to start with Maria. Maria, would you tell us what we're going to cover today for our last episode?
Well, I want to cover first the challenge. I want to go over the challenge.
That's what we're doing. Sorry.
Yes. Last time we asked you to pause and to reflect on some feedback that you received. Perhaps it was feedback that was very hard for you to believe or understand, and to share that with someone that you trust and process. Was there truth to that? Is there something I need to work on? Am I being overly defensive? Where have I grown? Maybe you did listen, but just processing through. So Tracy's going to monitor the chat, but if you had time to do that exercise and share that feedback with someone, we would love to hear about it. It's a hard thing to really just pause and listen. With open ears, with curiosity, we said last time, and to see if there's any truth in that. But that's where growth happens. Growth is rarely painless. It's going to sting, but sometimes we need to hear those things. So please put it in the chat and share with us.
That's right.
Yes, I love that.
And
so, Amy, did you happen to do the challenge?
I did, actually. And I was thinking back to a few years ago, a friend who brought me some pretty big challenge, and she was hearing me say, oh, let's grab coffee to somebody else. And she said to me, I know you love to do that and want to do that, but do you realize that you've told me that 3 times and you've never followed up? And I know that that's not what you want, but I just feel like I can't trust that when you say that, and I want you to know. And it stung.
Oh,
yeah.
The last thing I want to do is let somebody down, but it was really important feedback. It's made me very intentional because I was in a responsive place. I listened and I wanted to hear what she said. And I have really thought about that in the last 6 years. How am I promising something I can deliver on? So it was really hard, but probably one of the best things. Joanna, if you're listening, thank you.
Awesome.
Yeah, that's great.
That's really good.
Yeah.
Okay, so Amy, set us up for today.
Yes. Well, thinking of things that sting, we have a little bit of a theme here. We're going to be talking today about conflict around the holidays. And this is an important topic because we're in the midst of a lot of stress with the pandemic, naturally, but the holidays tend to be a time when we experience some conflict. And not that we want it, but somehow the pressure of the season sometimes finds us with family that we love, with friends that we love, where it's hard. And so we want to just put that on the table today as something we can talk about and find some ways to think about it in new ways so that we can move through this holiday season with intentionality and maybe get on the other side of it to New Year's, and maybe we've had a better experience. So I'm really excited to talk about what makes this hard. And I think we can show up in our best selves sometimes with strangers. I know I can bring a really great deliverable in my words, if I think about my words as a deliverable to my clients, even the ones that push my buttons. But why is it that it's so hard to do the same thing with people that I love the most? Why is that? Maria, I bet you have something here.
It's because we often are careful about curating the perception that strangers have about us, and we care a little bit less about what people in our own home care. It's like, what are you going to do? Move out? Good luck. It's just you tend to want to leave an impression with strangers or with clients or with coworkers, and then your family sees the true self, right? Which can sometimes have some warts. And so we're saying be really careful. You use the word intentional, Amy. I think that's a really good word. Let's make sure that we're not saving the best for people outside our home, that we are reserving some of that best for the people inside, and because they experience us right every day, they're living with us. And the kind of culture we create at home, just like the culture we create in our team, is up to you. What kind of culture, what does it feel like to be living in your house, to be part of your team, or living inside your organization? You can make an impact on that. Love this tool. Absolutely. Really helpful.
Absolutely. So I bet if you're like me, as soon as Amy said the word conflict in our topic, I'm wondering who out there listening had one person that popped in their head, or maybe one or two. Like as soon as you heard that word conflict, it's like, oh yeah, that's who I'm going to deal with over the holidays. And so thankfully, because of this tool, I've learned to not put it on that person, but to put it back on myself. So Amy, would you explain this tool? I know a lot of people know this tool, but this is their first time to see this.
Yes, this tool has saved me, I think, because it comes from the place of knowing yourself deeply so that you can lead yourself in a way that creates a reality that is meaningful and that you want. And what we know is that we all behave from a place of tendencies. We have deep-seated tendencies and patterns of behavior that cause us to act in certain ways. And I actually think we also think through our prior experiences. And if we've had difficult circumstances with people in the past, there's a cognitive bias almost of prior experience where we expect the same reality. So we talked a lot about mindset over the last few weeks, and I think that plays in here too. It's not just what's my default reaction under stress, which sometimes is not life-giving if I'm being honest, but it's also the mindset that I'm showing up with that causes me to act in a certain way. And for good or ill, all of our actions have consequences. And if we want to fast forward the movie reel to January 1st and look at our holiday celebrations without having regret, what are the kinds of things that we need to do differently with the way that we're acting? What is the pattern of behavior that we need to interrupt? That little dotted line, I learned this from a wonderful person named Maria Guy, that none of us want to be defined by our tendencies, negative tendencies. So what is the pattern of behavior that we need to interrupt actually and intentionally act in a different way so that we have consequences that are value adding and not negative, so that we have a reality that we want? And I think it's a very powerful way to think about holidays. Sometimes I walk into situations where I'm just expecting the same old. And guess what? That's what happened. So I'm actually committing this holiday to thinking differently about the situation. What's possible here that may not have been possible in the past? So I think it all comes back to me. I can't control how other people behave, but I can surely control my mindset and lead myself in a way that I haven't in the past. Maria?
That's really good. You're talking about good control, Amy. I want to talk about negative control, which can be a tendency that I can have. I think I have a perception of how things need to go, and then that tendency to want to control the narrative, want to control the sequence of events, and everything is there. So knowing that about myself, I have to lead myself differently. Otherwise, I will assume that certain things are going to happen in a certain way, and when people don't, then I'm frustrated or disappointed with them. And so it's hard to hide that. And so now they feel like they've let me down. So if you have that tendency to want to control what the holidays are going to look like, what the office is going to, what's going to happen, whether it's at home or at work, know yourself to lead yourself. One of the things that I was discussing with my husband just this weekend was, this Christmas is probably going to look different. We want it to be like all of our traditions, but it may look different. So we were going to ask our immediate family, what's one thing that you want to do, that you absolutely, want to do, whether it's, I want to drive around and see Christmas lights, or I want to watch a certain movie, or I really want to make sure that we are together at Christmas morning, whatever it is. And then try to accommodate people's expectations, but they may have them, but they may not be sharing them. So if we are proactive, then I can create a pattern of behavior where I can work to organize, because that's what I like to do, and make sure that all of that happens so that the consequences are good and the reality, people are happy about whatever, our holiday ends up looking like. And so I think it's just a proactive approach, because I know I'm going to have a plan in my mind and it may clash with someone else in my family if I don't communicate that. So that's one of my tendencies. And you can do the same thing, whether if you find yourself, scheming to get things the way you want, you're probably going to have a bad result, right? So make sure that you resist that temptation to control other people or control the situation, and instead ask, have conversations, begin a dialogue. What do people want to do this year? What can we do different? And it applies, again, like I said, at home or in the workplace. What
I
about you?
love that. Maria, the whole notion of proactivity is powerful. Tracy, what's in your mind around proactivity for you, knowing yourself to lead yourself?
Well, it's making me think of another tool, and that is the intentional versus accidental, because truly, if I don't write it down or make a plan or make a list, it's probably not happen, because I'm just going to keep putting it off, or I'm going to forget. And so I think just really intentionally saying, how am I going to lead myself during the holidays with myself?
Mhm.
How am I going, get enough rest, and all the things that I know for Tracy are powerful. Like, if I don't get enough rest, I'm not that nice. So I need to make sure I sleep enough. If I eat a bunch of junk and I feel gross, then I'm just not going to treat people the way that I want to treat them. Those are all things about me that I know. But then going out from this, if you've not seen this tool before, Maria, I'll have you go through it specifically, but looking through each of these and thinking, how can I be proactive and intentional during the holidays with all of these? So
Absolutely.
Maria, tell us in detail about this tool.
This is the 5 circles of influence tool. And what we know is that influence works from the inside out. So you can see that little arrow there. It starts with the self circle, and then it goes out, because we're all leading in different contexts, in different circles. You're leading yourself, you're a leader in your family, your team, your organization, and in the community. And it doesn't mean that you're the boss or you have all the employees report to you, but you're having an impact. You are influencing people, and that can be a negative influence or that can be a really positive, but it takes intentionality, because to show up, we'll see how it works out. That's being accidental. That's not really thinking about what is it that I need to do. And Tracy, you hit upon something really important. We always say start with the self first. Are you taking care of yourself? Have you made time for recharge? I can't tell you the problems that a lack of recharge, just, the havoc it wreaks on people's lives, their work, and their productivity when they are not taking care of themselves. And so start there first. Are you taking care of yourself? Are you taking care of the things that are going to make you healthy? And when you start investing on yourself, the return on investment, everyone gets to feel it. Your family gets to get the best version of you, right? You're proactive, as we were talking about. You're aware of yourself. You're creating healthy patterns of behavior. Then your team will experience it. Your organization you will impact them as well, and as far out as the community. So there are different people. Sometimes clients will tell me, well, I'm a different person in every one of these circles. And my first thought is, that sounds exhausting. Right? That sounds exhausting. So if we can consistently be the same person throughout, right? I'm taking care of myself, taking care of my family. I'm having a positive influence on my team, my organization. That is a lot more sustainable than showing up one way in one place and then having to switch gears mentally to treat people in a different way. That consistency is going to give you just a smoother transition from all of these different circles to make sure that you're having that positive impact. But it starts with taking care of yourself first.
Yes. And you know what? If I'm taking care of myself, if I'm not saying yes to everything, if I'm not feeling responsible for every single thing, and I'm resting, then I don't unwittingly become a conflict creator at the holidays, because I'm my best self. I'm able to bring my client-facing self to my family and treat them like I would treat a client. So that's such an important point, the recharging as a way to avoid contributing to conflict. We're able to better manage ourselves if we have our oxygen mask on, if we're recharged. Could we talk a minute about the notion of resilience? And
Yes.
we're talking about things that we can do proactively, but when we find ourselves in the midst of conflict, it's going to happen. The best intentions, regardless, we're going to find ourselves there. I'd love to hear from both of you what you do in those moments. What are some things that our listeners would want to maybe have in their back pocket to try if they find themselves in the moment of conflict?
One of the things that I do and I think it's natural tendency because I'm an introvert, is I listen. Especially if I'm angry or if tensions, if someone has just pressed a button, then I just think, don't say anything until you can sort out the emotion, the feelings. And so become a listener at that point. You just need to hear people out, because sometimes people don't necessarily want you to change anything. They just want you to recognize that they're unhappy, that they're displeased, that this didn't go the way they expected, and they're disappointed. And sometimes just listening and letting that person have that space might be all that is needed to move that conflict. And so that's the first thing I would say, is just pause. And you're going to want to defend yourself or justify whatever your actions are. Resist that temptation, because it will make things worse. Now, conflict is not necessarily bad, right? Tension is not something that we should avoid at all costs. You might actually end up in a better place, but you're going to have to be mindful and intentional about your words in order for that conflict to end up in a good place versus an all-out fight, justifying, blaming, and that kind of stuff. Tracy, I'd be curious to know what goes through your mind when you are in conflict.
Yeah, and I think one of you touched on this when we were kind of preparing for this, but that word hope is just kind of resonating in me. It's like, what am I going to hope for in this relationship, right? And so if it's all about me and my rights and what do I get out of this, or am I right with whatever the conflict is? Am I getting my way? That's just not the point. The point is, what can I hope for? What can I hope is the outcome here? And how can I start planning toward that? And it changes your mindset, right? You take it off of yourself and you put it on the relationship of, what do I hope for? And so it will change the way I respond. If I'm thinking, you know what, let's say a relationship with one of my sons. Well, my hope is that we have peace during this holiday season, and then we grow closer together, and that he sees that I really love him. And so if I have that umbrella of mindset over our relationship, then I respond differently, right?
So good. That is so good. So if I'm having a hopeful outlook and being optimistic, expecting the best would be another way of saying that. It's really hard to have a terrible outcome if you're really expecting the best, because you're going to be waiting for your opportunity to help make it better. You're going to proactively do things to get to that outcome that you want. So that sounds like a really important part of managing conflict. I love the idea. We've got some really practical things here, I'm realizing. So listening well, asking really good questions, and then having hope, having an optimistic attitude toward the person on the other side of you. If I'm thinking back to some conflict I've experienced in holidays past, I'm realizing I did not have that outlook, and what a difference that could have made in that circumstance. So that's really encouraging. What about gratitude? I think gratitude could also be helpful. I'm wondering if I had in the past said, thank you for telling me that. I really appreciate that. Even if I'm still irritated or mad, when you vocalize gratitude, it actually takes some of the energy away from the strong negative emotions that we're feeling.
Yeah. And I put up another tool just because it's something that triggers in my mind when I'm caught in a situation I don't know what else to do. I think of this boomerang visual, because I think it's not about me. I'm going to put it back on them and ask them more about themselves and tell me more about you and invest in them. And somehow, miraculously, magically, your self starts to disintegrate, in your mind, and they become bigger and you become smaller.
Mhm.
And that works every time. If
Yeah.
you love on them and invest in them and be interested in them.
Yes, even if it's conflict, I'm interested in knowing why you're upset, right?
Mhm.
What we're not saying is, hey, just back off, let people get away with things,
Yeah.
try and keep the peace. We're not saying any of those things. We're saying if you do engage in that conflict, right, listen. Think about the long-term consequences. Have that hope. Be grateful that you have an opportunity to address it and perhaps fix it, and then be interested in them to find out what is going on, what is the conflict here. It may be with your spouse that we have to go visit someone that you don't look forward to, or it may be a tradition that it's not your favorite, but just being interested in that person versus making sure that your point of view overrides is going to be really important. And so we call it being a liberator. When you fight for the highest possible good in the lives of those you lead, then it filters out your personal agenda and what is convenient for you. And it forces you to think, wait, what's the best thing for my family? This may not be my favorite thing to do, but if it makes my husband, my children, my mom, my mother-in-law, if that's something that they really value, I can be flexible. And it gives you a bigger perspective, right? Than just, oh man, I hate when we have to do that, or I hate when we have to go here, or I don't like being torn between these two, families, or whatever it is. There's going to be conflict, but having an intentional approach towards that can make all the difference in the world as you navigate through whatever it is that you're going to be faced with during this holiday season.
That's so good. Being interested in what someone's saying, even in the heat of the moment, is so important because when you think about it, if we're in conflict, if Marie and I are having an argument about things, I'm going to get in a defensive position and feel that I've got to win my point. And it's actually going to be harder for me to listen to her if I don't intentionally become more interested in knowing how she feels, knowing what her perspective is. Why does she feel this way? Tell me more. I wonder, dot, dot, dot. And I think if we could listen to the other person with the same intensity that we want to be understood, things would go so much better.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And don't forget to pause. Sometimes you just need a break. You may not be able to respond at that moment, say, I need to think about this. I need to come back. And it gives you the opportunity to have clarity and to kind of let those emotions calm down and be able to come back with a much better response than if you just unleash at that moment with whatever you're feeling. And so it's okay to say, let me think about this, or let me talk to somebody. Maybe there's someone that you need to confer with, and then we'll get back and try and figure out what is the best approach that is the highest good for your team, for your family, or for your organization.
The pause. What an elegant thing to allow in a conversation that's tense. That is beautiful. I love that.
Yeah, I agree. Well, so good, ladies. Okay. So, Amy, do you have a challenge for us this week?
Yes, I do actually. So if you're listening or watching, I want you to close your eyes for just a second. Actually, you probably don't even have to close your eyes. You probably already know the person that you're anticipating fisticuffs with. So whoever that person is, I want you to imagine what better could look like. What's your hope for a better outcome this holiday? So I want to challenge you to pick somebody that's a high conflict risk this holiday season and think through the process of how you want to show up in the right way, in a different way, and apply some of the things we've talked about today, where we're listening deeply and being interested in understanding that other person's perspective, even pausing if we need to. So I'd love for you to take a moment as we're finishing and write it down, actually. Maybe put it in the back of your checkbook that you'll have in your purse or your backpack as you travel, so you can see it and remember it, because I think that intentionality is what will get us on the other side of this, where we're feeling good about how we showed up. Does that sound like a good challenge, ladies?
That's a good one. I'm sure everyone's got someone in mind.
Yeah, I agree. And thanks to you all who on the chat, when we were going through Maria's last week challenge, you guys were really we had some really good things here of some people who learned some things from being challenged. So
Yeah.
actually, I'll just bring up Amy's just because you all may not be able to see it, but she said this: my husband so kindly clued me in that I have a tendency to not give much value to something unless it's my idea.
Ah.
She said, what? I had no idea this is what I did, but it's true. And this is what I naturally do. And I don't like that about myself. I was unaware. Now that I know, I can own it and can do my best to be intentional to make a change. My husband has agreed to keep me accountable. She says, thank you for this challenge. So that's great. And then she also added that she loves this idea of a pause, and she needs to enjoy that in that tactic. So I love that. I love the challenges. I think that we as women, we have to keep holding each other accountable. And
Yes.
we don't have to challenge in a bad way. We can challenge because we are lifting each other up. And that's what healthy challenge looks like. So thank you for that, Amy, and thanks for yours last week, Maria. So I hate to bring it to a close, but we are going to have to end this live stream, and we hope that you remember you can go back and watch it anytime, but we just thank you all for joining us, those of you on social media and on the Giant platform. Thanks so much for investing some time with us, and we can't wait to see you here coming up in 2021. So we hope you have a great holiday season. Thanks, Maria. Thanks.